Welcome to Bad Idea Metals. I'm Anthony, and today we're going to tear these three things apart. I'm probably going to loop in a video that I recorded for our anniversary last week, or 2 weeks ago, but never edited because, let's face it, I sounded like an unscripted, never mind. Anyway, so I may loop in some of the highlights from that. Just put that to music at the end of this one. But it was a pretty cool server, I have to say. But as for today, we've got these three pieces of lab equipment. Ecotech things. I don't know what any of them do, and I don't honestly know how any of this stuff works. These came to me last year as part of a company's destruction of old assets, and well, I have high voltage things, labels on some of these things, so most of the power should have, if not all of the power, should have dissipated long before I got it. But just in case, we're gonna have some cautious moments, and I'll just tell you what I see as we tear these apart. What I'm after: gold and silver, brass, aluminum, and copper, which I see plenty of copper in here. There's all sorts of stuff in the back there. So I'll try to make this fast, as I've got three devices to tear apart, and we'll get into it. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get focused on the one that's open, as it's open. It's easier to get into. Set the camera right here, and we're going to start tearing this apart. An ozone generator. That's fun. That's what an ozone generator looks like, I guess. I don't even know. So it looks like a solenoid of some type. Because I don't know what goes into this and how this operates, it looks like it takes a positive and negative power terminal here. So it takes electricity, and then it's gonna do something. I don't wanna mess with it. The only thing in here that looks like it's gonna be of any value to us for what I do on this channel is this terminal right here has got gold-plated pins. So we'll yank this off, and then call this one good, and run away and come back another day. I don't see too much else. I don't see any reason to risk anything else. There we go. So these are some pretty thickly plated pins, or at least they're big pins. We'll put the pins in one of our buckets, and we'll put everything else in the other. I think that's it for this. We're gonna sever these hoses, and we're gonna set this off to the side for a friend of mine to look at and make sure that there's something that we could dispose of. Can't imagine it wouldn't be, but I never know. Last thing I want to do is find out that something had some sort of radioactive isotope in it, or who knows what. Where should we go next? To be totally honest, this doesn't look like it's going to be super valuable. It's got a few capacitors and surface mount things, but overall, this doesn't look very interesting. I was hopeful that these were going to be worth something interesting, but to be totally honest, this is totally not working out for my expectations anyway. Okay, our first board is in hand. We've got some copper components. They're resistors, it looks like. Oh, I've not seen a coil like that. Not exactly like this. But we've got some gold-plated pins, some aluminum. So really The only thing on this board that's going to be worth any significant value here are our 3 copper coils and our gold-plated pins. There might be something interesting in these ICs, but these are the plastic ICs that really don't have as much value to them. Let's move on. All right, this board has a little bit better value for us. That has all these gold-plated pins again. It's got a few of these copper pieces. But yeah, it's got more pins that are gold-plated, and it's got copper again. So it's not significantly higher, but more gold-plated pins, less surface area and surface mount stuff that's useless. These are just aluminum-filled capacitors. I don't know anybody who specifically recovers the aluminum out of these. There's just so much other stuff in there, but technically there's aluminum, so there's that. All right, so what do I see here? Well, there's a handful of gold-plated pins here and along the spine of this card, as well as there's some right there and over there. In general though, I'm looking at some IC chips. Not very many. This one's gonna be okay. Those two might be as well. This one down here, it's hard to tell exactly what's in it, but it's too tall. That makes me uncomfortable. It could be memory, like a RAM register. That would be okay, but it could also be something else, which would have more copper. There's tantalum capacitors in here, and that's a pretty simple board. So we're gonna put this off to the side as a low-grade board. And that's really it for this one unit, other than that power supply that I want to get, and possibly come fight after whatever's holding this heat sink down for this power distribution. The power distribution could have silver in it. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Is this gonna be worth fighting? Oh yeah, look at that. And here, all of a sudden, is our best board in here. So these clips, I always see those on displays. So I believe I remember seeing a display on the front, but I don't know what the obsession with having these bendable clips right around the display instead of just using screws or something. But there's some gold flashing on here, not high value, but it'll still come off. And it's got some IC chips that are going to be something to process. So we'll see what the other side has for us. Sometimes when there's buttons and toggle switches, you'll have some contact points that are pretty interesting. So we'll get to that when we do. That is a grounding wire. We'll just yank that off. Pull that cable off. Okay. Let's see what's underneath this screen here. Just turn those straight. So a lot of times there might be some hidden gold on that ribbon where the screen connects. Okay, we'll look at that in just a second. But there's some gold here. It's kind of thick right there. You can feel it through my glove. That doesn't mean a whole lot, but it is thicker there. These buttons aren't necessarily gold, but I can see underneath the solder points that there is still gold right in there. All right, that's copper plated. So these toggle switches are copper plated. Well, they might be gold. A really low quality gold. Yeah, there's little gold pads. So in general, this board is not terrible. It's got some gold to take off. The last thing I want to do is just see what's on the other side of this board. They're probably LEDs. I need something that'll dig. All right. They do look like gold pad LEDs right here. A whole matrix of them. So that's not very high value. It's hard to get through that rubber silica type material that's coating this. But if I got desperate for it, there it is. We'll put it over here with our pins. It's a little bit of a disappointment, to be honest, but it's scrap. Okay, let's move this. We'll pull this one down. It's considerably lighter. Trying to figure out how to get, I think it's ready to open. All right. I like these big steel trays. They make for good sorting tables. And allows me to protect things like my tabletops and stuff. All right, right off, I see a lot of brass. Well, not a lot, but I see brass, a lot of wires, a few circuit boards, power supplies on this side over here. Really nothing that stands out as valuable circuit board wise. There's some stuff here on the back. So I'm going to start disconnecting tubes and brass, and we'll get the brass off, because brass is a pretty decent thing for me. Another piece of yellow brass. There's not much more brass in here. There is a circuit board right here, circuit board there, and on the back there's two power supplies. But I don't see anything on these circuit boards that stands out. There might be something interesting on this one, but I'm not seeing it right off. So there's all these gold interface points, and it's got this BGA right here, and then it had this card right there. I'm not exactly sure what this does. Let's see if we can get it off easy. Oh, it's got a BGA on that side too. So this card right here is actually pretty good for me. It's probably worth about $1 in scrap, which isn't a ton, unfortunately, for all the mess in here. But this right here is probably worth about 50 to 75 cents. Each one of those BGAs might be worth, I don't know, another 30 cents each. And then this bigger one here, this looks like it could be a memory storage or a programmed interface. This probably is storage, to be honest. It looks like a small hard drive, a solid state hard drive. Anyway, so this right here, these together, the chips probably are about $1 to $2. And then all the gold plated pins and gold terminal points, they're pretty good. So we'll set this off to the side. This is by far the best thing that I'm finding in here. Let's go ahead and take off all of the remaining brass, and we're gonna put this cabinet down and get into the last one. Some brass. Sometimes these fittings that are on devices to begin with, they're sometimes really tricky to get off. I don't know if I'm going to be able to turn this over that without taking the other piece off first. Does look like that'll come up though. It's a good thing. More glass. Careful with that. piece. Last brass that I see in here is this hose joining clamp right there. Now I'm out of brass to take apart. There's this circuit board for the display on the front. That first device had a pretty interesting display. Let's take this one apart. And get into our last one. And it's pretty heavy, which is optimistic for me. I'm hopeful that it'll have some fun stuff inside. Sure enough, that's where the screws are for this top panel. And it's off. And wouldn't you know it, it's pretty much identical to the first one I took apart, which makes me a little sad. Okay, so let's see, what did I do? I took off the circuit boards, and that was really all that I wanted. So why don't we just do that? We'll take off this front piece here, this circuit board for the display, and then these 3 circuit boards here, and then I'm going to set this off to the side to take the power supply off for my friend, and that's it. Oh, but there was this brass. Let's grab that brass while we're at it. These are the circuit boards that I was able to pull from those 3 devices. I think in general they're pretty low quality, and there's still a lot of work on all of these boards. These aren't quick turnaround, high value boards for me. The highest value quick turnaround material here are these IC chips. There's 4 of them that I can see right here, these BGA style. The rest, I'd have to yank off all those pins for the gold plating. They're impressively thick pins, but the gold plating is only so thick. And then for these 2 display front panel display cards, they've got some good gold on them, but again, it's almost as if it's flashing and not much else. So for the most part, yeah, these 3 lab devices, they probably were worth more sold for parts to somebody who wanted to try to get it running again, but it's not why I get what I do. It's not how I get my scrap. My agreement with almost all of my providers is that they would be destroyed by the time I'm done. Anyway, let me quickly show you some highlights from my server tear down last week. That was supposed to be our 4th anniversary video, but no audio with that. I sounded way too unscripted for that. So here's some highlights, and I'll see you in the next video. Good night.